Hello and welcome to the Unlucky Frog Gaming Podcast. You are joined by your usual hosts, Josh Hartley and Ben Porter. Ben, how are we doing?
We had a really weird conversation before we came on the air here. like weird even by our standards.
Yeah. Can we go over it again?
Right.
I mean, we were riffing for about 5 minutes.
I think we had a drone delivery system for toilet paper, which that's Jamie's fault.
We scrapped the original Kickstarter that I was coming on to talk about for a helicopter toilet paper delivery system, which is going to be via a drone. But I think you guys kind of came out with some cracking ideas, so feel free to continue to riff on that.
We'll see. We'll see how far we can.
My concern about this drone delivery system was that the drone delivers your toilet paper. And then there's that uncomfortable moment where the drone's just watching you on the toilet.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe if you sign up to the premium version, then you could, ask it to switch the camera off.
Yeah, or like face the wall.
So
hold on. In your idea of this service, what is the drone giving you the toilet paper and then you've got to give it back to it? It takes it away to the next person.
The environment, think about the amount of trees that are felled so you can wipe your arse. You've just wiped your arse on a forest your whole life.
You're not reducing the amount. People are still going to need the same quantity of toilet paper.
But doesn't toilet paper gets recycled, right?
I don't want to dwell on it. I don't know.
It just freaks me out when it says recycled toilet paper on it. But I know that doesn't mean actually toilet paper that has been recycled from previous toilet paper.
I'm hoping it's regular paper that was really bad in its previous life and it's now been reincarnated as toilet paper.
Do you think in 3018 there's going to be toilet paper that's wiped 1,000 bums?
Yeah, maybe. Possibly.
And then they'll have that on the packaging like a badge of honour.
Yeah, like a gold seal of it.
Wiped 1,000 bums.
Yeah. There'll be super kind of eco-friendly people who, as you say, as a badge of honour, will kind of embrace that completely and boast to their friends about how many bums they've had to join in. This is a crazy conversation.
So how long have you been using secondhand toilet paper? I've been using it for 3 years.
Like they're all bragging to each other. Like how long have you been wiping your arse with recycled paper?
I'd like to think, as you say, kind of paper that's just had a really bad rep has then sort of just been mashed into kind of pulp to be used as toilet paper, and it became
a sheet of paper. You have to do something really bad to become that.
It's going to be all the F-rated homework, isn't it? Like all the homework that got F.
It's F-rated homework and UKIP pamphlets.
UKIP pamphlet. I was thinking death warrant. Yeah, all those evil sheets of paper, they get turned into toilet paper.
Yeah. We should probably introduce Jamie.
Yeah. Hello. We've got Jamie on the show with us. Yeah. Jamie is the Noble artist who didn't come on the show to talk about recycled toilet paper, funnily enough, although anyone tuning in up until this point would think otherwise. Yes. Jamie, you are actually in fact on the show to talk about the game that you are bringing to Kickstarter very soon, isn't that right?
That is absolutely right. Yeah, thanks very much for having me here to discuss that amongst everything else that we'll inevitably talk about today, including what we've already talked about. I'm here to kind of have a chat with you guys about the game that I have designed and produced all the art for myself, called Hero Master, an epic game of epic fails. And it is a game about being it's a fantasy game. It's like a dungeon crawler, but it's a competitive game, so you guys are essentially the worst of the worst heroes, and you have been trying to get into decent parties the entire duration of your your adventuring career, to no avail. You're the guys that get picked last for everything, ever since school and gym class. No. You just managed to be the last guys to get picked, and still now it's the same kind of vibe. So anyway, you're kind of as you do, kind of lounging around at the tavern, and oblivious as you are usually to everything going on. You seem to be kind of unaware that there's a dragon that's come back to town, So all these adventurers are coming in and out of the tavern, kind of forming up into parties and going off. And before you kind of like realize what's going on, the dust kind of settles, everyone's gone, and you kind of look around and realize that you probably should have joined one of those parties. You look around and it's the same sorry faces sat around you that you always end up on an adventure with. So desperate to leave the party, you decide to go out and try to prove yourself by taking on the dragon and getting its hoard that you can come back and show and try and buy your friends next time into another party. So that's the plan. So because you're trying to desperately get away from the other guys, you're kind of trying to get in their way and sort of defeat the monsters before they get the chance to, so you can kind of go back with the bragging rights and the goal to show off to people. So it's a game where you're fighting against monsters, taking on kind of like traditional roles excuse me, in an adventuring party. So you've got like the barbarian and the rogue and the mage and the healer.
Sounds a bit like Unlucky Frog, the game.
But it's all kind of a bungling mess of buffoons trying to sort of get their way with kind of getting to the head of the party and what have you. So it's all about squabbling to be the party leader. It's all about kind of trying to trip each other up before they can get their kind of like lay their hit on the monster and try and get yours in at the same time. So it's kind of a combination of hand management sort of strategy, and with the kind of humor and stuff on the cards in terms of the kind of writing and the style of the art. It's all kind of very lighthearted, but actually it's cool. There's some quite deep strategy in kind of trying to maintain your authority as the party leader without being usurped by someone else they're all completely insubordinate, can't stand each other. And also try and get your best attack down without getting bungled. So it's a lot of kind of tit for tat, kind of some take that elements and a little bit of deck building in there too. But each time you kind of come to resolve an encounter, it's a good old fashioned D20 kind of like D&D style kind of combat.
I mean, I love the idea of being the Z list heroes. Which, to be fair, that's my kind of go-to when I'm playing something like Dungeons and Dragons. Anyway,
I mean, you'd be surprised by how many people were, sort of speaking to at conventions and stuff, and you kind of explain the premise of the game. They're like, "Oh my god, that sounds like my D&D session." Like it's just. For reals, rather than kind of like an actual parody. It's nice in the fact that people are kind of embracing it from that sort of standpoint already, kind of like in that kind of I remember those kind of occasions and stuff, and all of the kind of the writing on the cards and stuff, like kind of the flavor text is all very much kind of sort of like written as if it's about these kind of 8 characters who each kind of represent like one of the races or the classes within the game. And you're kind of getting little tidbits of their kind of like life and their stories from the cards. So kind of like how Leaf Tickle the elf is just absolutely obsessed with reminding everybody that they were the first race, the elves, to grace the world. So they should probably go first in everything, whether that be being the party leader or getting the first choice of the sandwich platter. So. That kind of silliness that kind of like goes through, but you kind of feel as you're reading the cards, you're getting to know the characters and stuff. But I was asked today, it's like, do you play as those characters? It's like, well, no, they're just kind of representations of the sort of the idiocy of the characters kind of found in the game. But you actually at the start of the game, a bit like Smash Up, where you combine 2 decks of cards, you're combining a race and a class together to kind of come up with these unique combinations of cards to play. So.
Cool. So what are the playable races? Because there's one I always look for.
Okay, let's see if we get it. So there is the humans, which they are kind of known as. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but when I play a new game, I always start as like the human fighter because it's the most basic kind of things to kind of pick up the rules and stuff. So with the human, she is her cards are like listed as boring. She's an underachiever. She's foolhardy. So basically, all these things kind of like she's a combination of all the other races have been around for a lot longer. So essentially, her special move is vanilla, where she basically gets to change everything to regular damage rather than kind of like something exciting like fire or what have you and stuff. So kind of just completely taking out all the enjoyment of kind of like playing a kind of an interesting character. But because of that, she's in actual fact like kind of a lot of fun to play. But she's kind of like, because she's like the youngest race and stuff and what have you, everyone treats her like a kid in the party and stuff. So, kind of like her opportunity to steal the party leader, rather than everyone else kind of basically like pulling like rankings of like, well, I do this and I do that sort of thing. She just charges into combat without really realizing what's going on. She just kind of throws herself in. So gets a massive kind of decrease to her defense, but at the same time gets to steal the party leader and stuff. And she just she's constantly kind of like the idea of the game is that you've got these attacks and stuff is really like what you would imagine characters to have as their attacks, like the barbarian can rage and what have you, but the bungle sort of side of things, and some of the attacks too, are kind of the innate dopey traits these characters have. So hers is just basically walking around telling everyone really boring stories that they've heard a million times because they've lived for thousands of years more than she has. But and the fact that kind of like she's never really lived up to much and what have you. So there's also the halfling as well, who's
there you go. There's my go-to.
So I mean, the halfling barbarian is a dangerous combination. So beware of that if you manage to get it. But the halfling can slip between the monster's legs to avoid an attack. That's the special move. But the kind of the bungles from the halfling are always eating and lazy. So essentially kind of like the party are just getting driven mad by this halfling like constantly having like third dinner and stuff, like when he's supposed to be kind of in the middle of a combat. So
much like myself, Ben beat me to my own joke.
your spirit animal, your spirit race, should I say, is a
yes.
So it's kind of so with these bungles, the idea is that kind of like you're playing these cards on other players to kind of stop them from getting the gold from a monster, because if you defeat the monster you get the gold. Sure. And those are kind of the victory points in the game. The bungles are things that would drive other people in the party crazy, because you, as I say, you can't stand each other. So kind of like the wizard, for example, is really pompous and kind of like refuses to let you use your magic weapon or something you just picked up because he doesn't think you're authorized to use it. As I say, the elf is constantly pulling rank on everybody for being like the kind of the venerable race, and the dwarf is just like belligerent and annoying to everybody because he just has no manners.
Josh is just staring suggestively at me just now.
Ben always plays a dwarf, so
I see. Right, well, that makes sense.
It's just the fact that I play the dwarf. None of the other things apply. Right?
None of the grumpy stuff.
Yeah, sure. Sure.
So you've got the human, the elf, the dwarf, and the halfling in the races, and classes. You've got wizard, priest, rogue, and barbarian. And the barbarian has just got no spatial awareness, and that's his kind of
that's his bungle.
That's his bungle, yeah. Just having literally like he's just too big just to fit in anywhere or let anybody do anything. So
is a barbarian halfling the size of a normal person?
Just a more like kind of like if you imagine a halfling height, but kind of like maybe sort of 7 or 8 feet wide.
I'm picturing like a 3-foot Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Yeah, exactly.
Like Conan the Barbarian, but 3 foot tall.
Exactly. Yeah, you can with a sword that's about 4 times the size of it, like kind of swinging around. So that's the kind of the premise, the kind of like that you are kind of trying to bungle your way through quite literally to the Dragon's Den. And to be honest, when you get to the Dragon's Den, you have a showdown with the dragon and stuff, and a lot can be won and lost in that moment. But I'd say, to be honest, most is lost at that moment, because again, you are the worst guys. Like kind of like everyone's trying to take a punt on the dragon right at the very end, because it yields so much of a reward. But you're probably going to get defeated and die like when you try and take it on. So it's kind of sort of like it's a bit of an all or nothing move. So if you're in the lead, like kind of some people are kind of trying to avoid it, some people are trying to secure the victory by going for it. Some people are just trying to get into combat because you can't bungle someone if you're not involved in the combat yourself. So you're likely to get,
right
on the head by the dragon. If so it's like, right, well, do I get involved in this combat and bungle someone and risk to get kind of eaten by the dragon, or do I kind of completely stay out of it and just hope to God that they're going to just screw it up? And the bungles also kind of they increase the threshold for a critical fail. So in D&D you'd roll a 1, you critically fail. In this, an epic fail occurs on the number that kind of like is in the threshold of the bungle card if you get bungled. So it could be like a 1 to 8 that you critically fail. When you do something kind of basically mayhem happens. It can be positive, it can be negative. So it could be that kind of like the guy who's been kind of like leaning on you, kind of like eating cake in your ear, gets whacked with your axe instead of the monster, or it might be that kind of like you end up kind of like full on punching yourself in the face and knocking yourself out. Anything goes really sort of in that situation. So there's a small deck that you draw from. It's kind of you kind of travel from location to location, which is picked by the party leader again. So another reason to kind of try and squabble to be the party leader. to which kind of like, and when you choose a location, it has a benefit for the party leader usually, so you kind of want to pick that up and work out which one benefits you the most. So it might be kind of like that you find some kind of healing, or it might be that kind of there's a treasure that you've kind of found because you're first on the scene because you're the party leader. So yeah, it kind of like, and as you go through locations, there's different kind of monsters to fight in those different locations. There might be boss monsters that are only kind of unique to that location, so they've got different skills too. So each time you play, not only are you going to play different characters and different combinations of characters, like currently 16 different variations, but also there are going to be, you're going to be playing against different characters too, so it kind of makes things differently on how you play against them maybe, and kind of think about what you're going to do. But also each location you play in, there's going to be different monsters. You're going to pick up different treasure. There's loads of treasure cards in the game and stuff, so kind of you're going to sort of, it will take you quite a few games to kind of see everything. And play everything. So yeah, there's lots of replayability, and yeah, I mean, sort of, it's a game at the moment. Kind of, it's been kept to about an hour. You can extend it with extra locations and stuff, and you can even run games together, like in the form of a campaign. I'm actually kind of like working on a campaign at the moment for a stretch goal. You heard it here first. So yeah, it's there's lots of exciting stretch goals that I'm kind of really excited about getting out there, and yeah, so it's that's kind of the long and short of it.
There we go.
I guess you've talked quite a bit about the use of humor in the game.
Yeah.
And one of the things that occurred to me is that a lot over time, humor often has a tendency to wear a bit thin. How have you circumvented that issue? I mean, I guess a game I could use as an example here is Cards Against Humanity, right? It's like the first time you play that, everyone's guffawing and everyone's appalled at the things that are written on the cards. Then you play it a couple of times and it loses its charm. So, how have you approached comedy?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked. I mean, it's actually one of the things that got highlighted as a positive part of the game by one of the reviews that I just got. It should go out. I had a quick sneaky read before it went out because we were just kind of working out when to kind of release the different reviews and stuff to try and kind of drip feed a little bit, kind of so it wasn't all kind of a big sort of like kind of overload of information on the 18th when it launches. But yeah, one of the positive things was like, this is a game that kind of does humor well. It's not kind of like that kind of slapstick kind of sort of like sort of thing. It's kind of they're almost like nostalgic, kind of like those kind of warm tidbits of story that you kind of get, and they kind of sort of make you smile because they're relatable if you played kind of like games and stuff. And I think because there's that element of humor actually like literally written on the cards. There's the illustration backs it up, but I think the kind of like, because you're given that flavor, you get into that mood with it. But the kind of the real humor is when you're kind of actually like acting out those kind of like different cards when you're playing the game sort of thing. So kind of like there's so much banter going around the table when you kind of like bungle someone for the night time that encounter, sort of or that location. You're like, dude, just leave me alone. Like, what's going on? Sort of thing. Kind of like, it's like, it's always the elf. Like, why the elf? Like, kind of like that sort of thing. It's kind of, it's those moments where you sort of like you start to actually develop that party mentality of Dungeons and Dragons, but kind of like a really dysfunctional party mentality. So that's where that kind of persistent humor comes from. Yeah, sure, you might have read, you're gonna read the cards at some point, all of them. I mean, there's a lot of cards to read, but like, because you've read those cards, it's all going to feel quite natural to then kind of assume those roles of the characters. Do you know what I mean? And I did a playthrough with the guys from Polyhedron Collider the other day, and sort of had a chat with someone else as well. But anyway, we're just kind of sort of saying how actually when you play a character, you really kind of assume the role of that character because they've got quite different skills. So they're pretty sneaky and sneaks in and out of combat and what have you and stuff. And it's when you play on those kind of tropes that you find in there, especially when you kind of like make light of them, then people are like, dude, that rogue, like, God, he's so slippery, like, kind of like, and it becomes that kind of like comical moment. So I think that's its longevity and its lasting power.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and because like you say, I think when you the big difference between this and the example we use, Cards Against Humanity, you're role playing effectively. Yeah. It's a little. it strikes me as a little bit, RPG light,
a wee bit more nuanced,
but because you're playing those characters, you'll get into it, and that's where the staying power would be.
I think there is something to be said for games like this where winning is almost like a secondary objective to creating the most. It's like Tales of Arabian Nights, right?
Yeah.
It's like that's quite a divisive example, I know, but like whenever we play that, like nobody really cares who wins. A lot of the time, you don't even remember who won. You just remember that
I spent like most of the game in jail, or got turned into a monkey, or
something like that. Yeah.
God, I'm trying to think of the name of the game that we played a couple of years ago. God, it's going to drive me insane. But it marketed this game, and now I'm going off on a tangent here, as I said I probably would.
Go for it.
Like just to because there's also, I think there's a game that came out on Kickstarter recently called Roll Quest, possibly. So no, I think there's another Kickstarter called Roll Quest. I'm going to look like an idiot when I've got the name wrong, but in that it's kind of a game where you're trying to I think you're scoring points, or kind of like by playing like a kind of like a morose like wizard or something, or kind of like this, that, and the other. Hero Master isn't that, kind of like it's kind of like role play is optional, kind of like it's just the fact that kind of people tend to get into their characters and sort of like giggle about the tropes and what have you. But there was a game that I can't remember what it's called, but it wasn't, you kind of scored points at the end for kind of like how your storyline kind of played out, but it was very much like an acting sort of thing. It was a lot of fun, kind of like it just like really, really stupid stuff. That we had this one where basically kind of like it was like a murder mystery set in like a cowboy environment, but like all of the characters were goofballs trying to find out kind of like what it was. So it was a lot of fun and a lot of kind of like humor involved and stuff, and so that was good too.
Excellent.
So this is your first game, but it's not your first Kickstarter, is it?
Yeah, you're right. It's I've done 3 Kickstarters before, all for as I'm primarily an artist, so I work on other people's board games and stuff, but kind of as a test for like Kickstarter. When I first did one of the campaigns, it was a few years ago and stuff, and Kickstarter's come on like leaps and bounds in sort of in recent years. So I mean, I looked back on my campaign pages, and they just wouldn't stand up now compared to kind of like what I'm putting out for Hero Master the game. So it's a really different experience and stuff. I mean, sort of like, but they were, the great thing is they were all successful. One of them was a Hero Master greetings card kind of set, which is kind of was a soft launch almost for this, because I wanted to kind of see how the humor was received, if there was a market kind of for that sort of thing, and it's great. And sort of like I sell them on Amazon and Etsy and stuff now, and there's still a kind of like a good trickle of income coming from that, so which is really positive, especially kind of now I can stick a business card in for the game too. So that's worked out as good marketing and stuff. But it's my first solo, and I say solo not as in the gameplay variant, but solo project, which is a game, because I've worked on other people's games and worked with them on Kickstarter as the artist and as the graphic designer, and kind of sometimes as a bit of a kind of like helpful source of information for Kickstarter, because I've worked on a few now. I wouldn't say I'm a consultant or anything by any means, because I rely heavily on other people in the industry in terms of consultation and stuff. So I can't claim that at all, but I'm always happy to give information where I can about that sort of stuff. But so this is my first venture going solo for a game, so I'm really excited, and it's kind of sort of like I'm a real fantasy nerd, so I wouldn't have started without doing a fantasy game. And I think because it's a game because the fantasy genre is it's very, very heavily saturated, I wanted to do something which was kind of maybe put a different spin on it, and
a little different. A little different. So I take it then you are a Dungeons and Dragons player as well. What character are you playing as at the moment?
Well, you know what, I haven't played in a couple of years, but my I basically moved away from my old group, and kind of never really sort of settled down into another one, and sort of ended up actually playing a lot more board games than I RPG now. So my board game collection is very fantasy heavy. And quite often kind of quite dungeon crawl heavy as well.
Excellent. We love a good dungeon crawl here at Unlucky Frog.
What are you playing at the moment?
what am I playing at the moment? I'm playing a combination of obviously Gloomhaven, which is kind of like, you know, do you know what though?
Yeah. Same.
I've stitched myself up though because I'm playing solo again because I've just moved into the middle of the countryside and there's no one around. Although I did just find out there's a gaming company like around the corner from me and they've invited me for a game, which is really cool.
There we are. Yeah,
that's nice of them. It's a girl who does. Do you know Katie Aidley, who does? She does Katie's Game Corner. She's another content creator, and she's just started working for them. So she was like, "Yeah, come around, bring Hero Master." So that was really cool. So
very good.
So I should be trying to do that at some point soon. But what I've done with Gloomhaven, like an absolute fool, is playing it solo. I went from 2 characters, and I was like, "This is really cool. I love this. How can I make this better?" Well, more is always better, isn't it? So I added another character, and then I added another character in the next scenario, or a couple of scenarios when I can actually kind of like, I think I've got the town's prosperity enough to be able to recruit someone at, you know, the next level up straight away. So waited for that, did that, and my God, the scenario took me like 5 hours like to do with 4 characters because I went into kind of complete analysis paralysis and like kind of so I would advise, and this is I kind of went on a couple of different board game groups and like, has anybody tried this? Like, kind of, it just seems like I can no longer get it to the table because you need a full Sunday afternoon to kind of like, you know, and I've got a 1-year-old as well, so it kind of makes that quite difficult.
I imagine.
So it's now reduced down to two characters again, and who do I cut? It's just not fair.
On the plus side, though, in 3 years' time, you'll have a child that you could maybe
exactly. Well,
with.
In the meantime, Studios are bringing Gloomhaven to PC.
I know.
There we are.
How cool is that? Yeah, I'm definitely going to buy it. The sad thing is though, and because I love the kind of like tactile nature of like having a board game of figures and stuff. But you know what? Kind of like I'm also another fool because I didn't invest in the what do you call it, the inlay, the fancy inlay that kind of like done, and which kind of helps tear down times a lot apparently. But I'm really worried that if I buy the game, then I won't go back to the actual board game. But you know, I really love the board game, and having it kind of like all done for you is quite a nice feeling. But on my 1-year-old, definitely, literally for his first birthday, I bought him a big D6 in hope that, you know, it might kind of like, I don't know, start to immerse him into some kind of gaming world.
Start them out young, that type of thing.
Hook them while they're young.
Exactly.
Exactly. That's the tactic. I think that's just about all we've got time for. But just before we go, do you want to let our listeners know where they can find out more about Hero Masters, an epic game of epic fails?
You nailed it. Good job. Yeah, absolutely. That's kind of like a tongue twister. It's a challenge that I give people before I interview them. Yes, absolutely. You can. There's several places you can find me and the game. So I'll be launching on Kickstarter on the 18th of September, which is a Tuesday. And it will most likely be around lunchtime for the UK. And in the meantime, you can actually sign up for the mailing list so you get kind of notifications for it. There's, which is at thenobleartist.com/HeroMasterGame. And if you sign up early, then you do get access to a bonus card as well, which will come when you get your reward from the Kickstarter. And also the preview link to the Kickstarter is also live as well. So that's actually kind of in several places. If you go to the Facebook page for Hero Master, you can find it there. Sorry, the Facebook group even, should I say, which is facebook.com/groups/Hero Master Game. And there's a really cool community there of almost 1,000 people now talking about it and getting really excited about it, which is making me very, very happy and kind of like really, really sort of validating to feel like kind of what you're doing is being really well received. So that's really cool. And yeah, so those are the kind of two main places to find out about the game. And obviously, as I say, Kickstarter. You can check it out now beforehand. Video content still is going on there soon, but that's about the last thing that needs to go up. So everything else is on the page.
Excellent. Well, look, Jamie, thank you very much for coming on the show. And of course, we at Unlucky Frog will be sharing the Kickstarter page as it goes live and keeping all our listeners up to date on that as well. But I think thank you once again, Jamie, for coming on. And from Ben and I, Have a good night. Thank you very much for listening, guys.
Cheers.
Bye.
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 Hi everyone, it's Charlotte from the Unlucky Frog Gaming Podcast. Thank you so much for listening. Now be sure to follow us on Facebook and Twitter. All you need to do is search Unlucky Frog Gaming. You can also show your support for the Unlucky Frog through Patreon. To find out more information, check out our website www.unluckyfrog.com. Thanks, bye!